Hey guys, welcome back to Based MMA. In this video, I'm going to be giving my UFC Austin predictions, guys. I'm very excited for this UFC Fight Night card because it's the first time that I watch a UFC fight live. I will be flying to Austin on Friday. I'm going to be, filming a vlog of my first UFC event. So I'm very excited for this card. But I will say this. Before I even start with my predictions, I do think that the card definitely took a hit with Dan Hooker pulling out. And then they removed the Khalil Roundtree fight to next week's Apex card against Anthony Smith. I wish they would have just replaced his opponent and made Anthony Smith fight at Austin, but that might be too quick of a turnaround. So I feel like the card definitely took a hit. I feel like it was like an 8 or 9 for a UFC Fight Night card because we were going to have that Bobby Green versus Dan Hooker 5-round fight that I was very excited for. And don't get me wrong, Jalen Turner is a good replacement, but I don't think it's going to be as exciting as a potential Dan Hooker versus Bobby Green fight. I mean, we'll see how the fights turn out on Saturday night, but still a very solid Fight Night card. And for this video, I'm going to be giving my prelim predictions, the prelim predictions all the way to the main card predictions for the prelim fights, which I think those are the fights that people don't really care about that much. I'm going to be giving like quick predictions for those fights, and then I'll talk more in depth about the fights that you guys actually care about, which are the main card fights, which there's a lot of great ones. I mean, we got obviously the main event, Armin Tsarkukyan versus Dariush. We got Bobby Green versus Jalen Turner. Very interesting fight as well. We got Raw Farm versus Davidson Figueiredo. Davidson Figueiredo is coming up from the flyweight division. He's only fought Moreno in the past 3-4 years, which is absolutely crazy. Then we got Sean Brady versus Kevin Gastelum. Kevin Gastelum is going back to the welterweight division. So that's very interesting. So there's a lot of great fights on this card. But like I said, I will be starting with the prelims. The first fight on the prelims, we got Veronica Hardy versus Jane Lynn Horth. And am I the only one who thinks she looks like the nun? Anyway, this is a mid-off. Veronica Hardy isn't very good. She's coming off her win against Juliana Miller where she went to a decision. She didn't look all that great. She's kind of small. She's 5'4". Prior to that Juliana Miller fight, she hadn't fought in over 3 years. I know she trains with Greg Hardy, but I don't know, to be honest. I could care less about this fight. I mean, this girl's 6-0. She looks like the nun. And I think James Lynn Horth is going to win this fight by decision. And that's that. Now, moving on to Wellington Turman versus Jared Gooden. I'm going with Wellington Turman to win by decision. This is a terrible fight. I really don't want to talk about it too much. Rodolfo Bellato versus Iho Potieria. Damn, I butchered that for sure. Also, this is an interesting fight, but I'm going with Rodolfo Bellato. I know he's coming off that win in the Dana White Contender Series and light heavyweight division. This guy's pretty mid, NPC looking motherfucker. I think this guy's gonna lose. I'm gonna go with Rodolfo Bellato to win this fight. Yeah, not the greatest of prelims to start off this card. Now, moving on to a great fight, a featherweight bout between Steve Garcia, who's coming off a really good win where he almost lost. He got dropped badly in that first round, was able to come back and get a nasty finish, landed some good shots to the body over this guy. I recently rewatched that fight. This guy is also, a guy that wins by KO or he gets knocked out. Mexico Costa is coming down from the lightweight division. I think this guy's pretty talented as well. There's definitely going to be a knockout. I definitely see this fight being like the fight of the night, or at least maybe not the fight of the night, but maybe the fight of the prelims. And I'm going with Costa. I think he's a little bit more durable. He's a little bit crisper on the feet. Steve Garcia does have a lot of power, so one of these guys is gonna get knocked out. But I'm going with Costa to win by KO. Drakkar Klose versus Joe Selecki. Joe Selecki right here. I hope I'm saying it right, man. I feel like I'm butchering these names. I'm sorry, guys. I'm Mexican, okay? Joe Selecki, wrestler, just likes to grapple. If he's going to win this fight, he's either going to take Drakkar Klose to the ground, just kind of control him on the ground. Drakkar Klose, I think, gets the better of the exchanges on the feet. Also, not two guys that I'm very high on. I mean, Drakkar Klose, it looks like he has a pretty good resume, but if you actually go back and rewatch his fights, his performances haven't been that impressive, in my opinion. I know he got knocked out by Beneil Dariush pretty badly, but I'm going with... I was going to go Joe Selecki by decision, Yeah, I'm going Joe Selecki by decision. I think he'll out grapple Drakkar Close and just win a very boring decision. I see this fight going 3 rounds. I hope Drakkar Close gets a KO. I think that's the only way I see him winning this fight. I hope that actually happens. Not a fight that I'm too looking forward to, that I'm very looking forward to in my opinion. Now, Zachary Reese versus Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage is absolutely terrible. I'm going with Zachary Reese. Even though I've never watched him fight, to be totally honest with you guys, I think Cody's really bad in the fights that I've seen him. Now moving on to Miesha Tate versus Julia Avila. I could also care less about this fight, guys. And you guys shouldn't care. But Miesha Tate versus Julia Avila. Miesha Tate is coming off that loss to Lauren Murphy, where she looked absolutely terrible against Lauren Murphy. And if you're looking terrible against Lauren Murphy, you're definitely not. She's definitely not at the top of the division anymore. She's definitely washed. And yeah, this is clearly a 50-50 fight. I mean, it's woman MMA. Anybody can win this fight. And whoever you bet on, you should probably bet on this fight by decision. So I'm going Miesha Tate by decision. I think she has a better grappling out of the two. And she's going to be able to get a decision. Now, moving on to the main card. Okay, now we got some good fights. Soriano versus Dustin Stolfis. I mean, I know Soriano's coming off a couple losses. I mean, he lost to Roman Kopylov, but Roman Kopylov is clearly showing that he's a really good middleweight, that he's improved a lot, a great prospect in the middleweight division. So there's nothing embarrassing about losing to Roman Kopylov, in my opinion. And then his win against Lungia Bula, great KO in the second round. He lost to Maximov, so he's been win one, lose one, win one, lose one. Definitely, not as good as people expected. I remember when this guy was coming up, people were hyping him up. People thought he had the skills, but I think he should be good enough to beat Dustin. I think he wins this fight by KO, TKO in the second round, or maybe the first round. Now moving on to Clay Guida versus Joaquim Silva. Joaquim Silva is obviously coming off his loss to Arman Tsarkukyan, where he almost finished Arman Tsarkukyan in the second round, had a lot of success, very dangerous striker. And I think he's going to KO Clay Guida. Look at his record, 38 wins, 20 losses. This guy's a vet, man. He's had so many fights in the UFC, and he has a very jittery striking style upon rewatch. And I think Silva should be able to knock him out, to be totally honest. And maybe even get a submission. I think Joaquim Silva has pretty good BJJ, has pretty good striking. I think he's going to be able to hurt Clay Guida on the feet and then maybe get a submission in the end of the first round. That's my prediction. I think I'm going Joaquim Silva by submission. Now moving on. Now we're going to go into good fights. Oh, what am I doing? No, not yet. Now moving on to Sean Brady versus Kevin Gastelum. Sean Brady is coming off his loss to Bilal Muhammad. I feel like I have a booger. Do I have a booger or not? I feel like I had a booger. It was annoying me. Anyway. Sean Brady versus Kevin Gastelum. Very interesting fight. I think this is going to be a great fight. I love this matchup. Sean Brady was supposed to fight JDM back in July. Had to pull out of that fight. I forgot why. I forgot it. Maybe he had an injury, something like that. But anyway, he's coming back to fight Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum was actually supposed to fight Shavkat Ramonov at UFC Mexico back in September. Shavkat Ramonov pulled out of that fight. So, they kind of pulled out. I think Shavkat pulled out of that. No, Kelvin pulled out of that fight because he got injured in sparring, actually. So these guys were matched together for this card, and I think this is a great fight, man. Sean Brady is coming off his embarrassing loss to Bilal Muhammad, and something that I noticed with watching Sean Brady's fights, even prior to the Bilal Muhammad, is that he tends to gas out, man. He tends to gas out. I mean, he's beat guys like Michael Chiesa, where you're having a war with Michael Chiesa, man. Come on, man. You just saw what Kevin Holland did to Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa is absolutely terrible on the feet. If you can't get him out of there, even when he was getting tagged by Jake Matthews as well. So even though Sean Brady prior to the Bilal Muhammad fight had I think he was undefeated in the UFC. Yeah, he was undefeated in the UFC. I didn't think he was all that impressive. People were hyping him up. And to be honest, I kind of got lost in the sauce because I remember at the time when he fought Bilal Muhammad, I picked him to beat Bilal Muhammad. I was like, okay, he's going to get the better Bilal Muhammad on the feet. But like I said, I feel like he tends to gas out. And I feel like he's a guy that tends to, once he gets hurt, he doesn't have the grit to come back from getting badly hurt. And he's going against Kelvin Gastelum, a guy that has pretty good boxing, very durable on the feet. I think Kelvin Gastelum is going to be able to stuff the takedowns. I know this is a Kelvin Gastelum moving down from the middleweight division, but just look at Kelvin Gastelum's last performance against Chris Curtis. That was an amazing fight. He had a great first round. You know, Chris Curtis has a lot of power, great striker in the middleweight division. And the fact that Kelvin Gastelum was able to beat somebody like Chris Curtis gives me a lot of confidence to pick him against somebody like Sean Brady, where I think Sean Brady is not that good on the feet, doesn't have a lot of power. And like I said, I think if Kelvin Gastelum hurts Sean Brady on the feet, I think the fight is pretty much over. So I'm going with Kelvin Gastelum to win this fight by KO, TKO. I think he's going to, I think the first round is going to be pretty competitive. Maybe Sean Brady tries to get a takedown. Maybe he gets one takedown and then Kelvin Gastelum gets up. That'll be the round. And then Kelvin Gastelum, I think, starts to piece him up on the feet. But, the only way I see Sean Brady maybe is like if Kelvin Gastelum didn't really train his grappling defense too well and Sean Brady comes in like really focused, and maybe he could get Kelvin Gastelum down and maybe win a decision there. But I think Kelvin Gastelum is just too good on the feet for somebody like Sean Brady. And I just can't pick you after you got TKO'd by Bilal Muhammad on the feet, man. It's just like, nope. I'm going with Kelvin Gastelum to win. And to be honest, I can't believe I think the odds are closer now, but I still can't believe that Kelvin Gastelum is an underdog. I guess people still have a lot of faith on Sean Brady, and maybe he'll prove me wrong on Saturday. But I'm going with Kelvin Gastelum to win this fight. Now, moving on to Rob Font versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I think this is a fight that I'm actually looking forward to the most except the main event, actually. I think the main event is pretty good. Rob Font versus Deiveson Figueiredo, guys. This is a very interesting fight. This is a fight that I did my homework for sure, man. I went back and watched all of Rob Font's fights. I went back to watch all Deiveson Figueiredo's fights, even the fights prior to Brandon Moreno, because Deiveson Figueiredo has been fighting Brandon Moreno for the past 3 years. Oh my God, why is it not loading? He's been fighting Brandon Moreno for the past 3 years, and every time he's been looking worse and worse. I mean, in the third fight, I know he won that third fight because he dropped Brandon Moreno in like 3 times in some of those rounds, but he was still getting pieced up by Brandon Moreno on the feet with his boxing. The thing is that Deiveson Figueiredo has a lot of power in the flyweight division. He's typically the bully. He's typically the guy that has the power, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't throw a lot of combinations, doesn't throw great kicks. He lacks a bit in output. And then he's moving up a weight class where he's not going to have the power advantage that he once had in the flyweight division. And you're going against Rob Font, somebody who has a lot of volume, great boxing, great output. And we've seen that he can knock out guys as well. I don't see how Deiveson Figueiredo wins this fight. I mean, I know a lot of people say, well, he can grapple, but it's like he couldn't even, I mean, I know Brandon Moreno's a great grappler, but like go back and watch Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo 4 in January. Figueiredo looked terrible, man. He's looked like so washed. He looks like so out of it. I feel like the fact that like when he got hurt by Brandon Moreno, he was like, like, I don't know, man. I don't know where his head is at. I don't feel like he's that hungry anymore, to be totally honest with you. I feel like he's kind of been broken now by Brandon Moreno, and then he's moving up somebody against Rob Font, who even though Rob Font just got beat by Corey Sandhagen and, showed that he has a big grappling hole and he doesn't have great takedown defense, he's still great on the feet, man. I mean, look what he did to Adrian Yanez. I picked against him against Adrian Yanez because I was like, man, he took a good beating against Marlon Vera, and I was like, that definitely changes you as a fighter. But he still showed that he's still a great striker, great boxer, and I think he's gonna piece up Deiveson Figueiredo. I think Deiveson Figueiredo is gonna get overwhelmed by the output of Rob Font, and like I said, I just don't think he's gonna have the power advantage that he once had. And even though we've seen Rob Font get dropped, we haven't really seen Rob Font get finished. I mean, I doubt that Deiveson Figueiredo hits harder than Marlon Vera and has the striking of a Jose Aldo. So I don't really see Deiveson Figueiredo winning this fight. I think Rob Font is going to beat him up by TKO, KO. I think he's going to piece him up. He's going to overwhelm him with combinations against the fence. And I think he's going to lose. I think Deiveson Figueiredo is going to lose. I honestly think he's done. I think he's going to retire. I don't really think his power is going to translate to the bantamweight division. And like I said, I just went back to watch his fight with Brandon Moreno, his last 2-3 fights. And then I watched his Joe Benavidez fight prior to the Brandon Moreno fight. And even that Joe Benavidez fight, he was getting tagged quite a lot. Like he was getting hit a lot. The thing is, like, in the flyweight division, Davidson Figueiredo has a way more power than the rest of these guys. So all it takes is one shot from Figueiredo to put these guys down. But like I said, he's going to lose that power advantage. He's not going to be able to be the bully into bantamweight division and as good as somebody as Rob Font. And look, Rob Font has a 71.5-inch reach advantage. That's gonna work wonders. And like I said, Davidson Figueiredo doesn't throw the best leg kicks, which I think he would have a lot of success if maybe he implements a leg kicking game here. But it's not typically something we see in Davidson Figueiredo's game. He's typically, he winds up his punches. He wants to land a big shot on you and knock you out. And he couldn't even do that to Brandon Moreno. And we've seen Brandon Moreno get dropped by a lot of guys. I mean, we just saw his war against Alexander Pantoja. So I don't think Brandon Moreno is like this great defensive striker. So if you're having problems with Brandon Moreno in the flyweight division, I think Rob Font's going to piece him up. I'm going with Rob Font by KO, TKO in this fight. Now, moving on to the co-main event of the evening. Is it doing it again? It is doing it again. Let me close this up. Anyway, it doesn't want to open up again. Now, moving on to Jalen Turner versus Bobby Green. Bobby Green was supposed to fight Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker pulled out due to an injury. Jalen Turner steps in. And this is a very interesting fight, guys. I honestly was picking Bobby Green. The reason I was picking Bobby Green is because Jalen Turner isn't very good defensively. He gets hit quite a lot. And I don't think he has that. I think his power is a bit overrated, man. I remember prior to the Dan Hooker fight, people were saying, oh, man, this is one of the best strikers in the lightweight division. And then he gets pieced up by Dan Hooker. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't get Dan Hooker out of there. He lands a nasty head kick on Dan Hooker. But Dan Hooker, blonde Dan Hooker is a mystical fighter. And he couldn't get him out of there. And then he got broken in the second round and then lost that third round and got finished by Dan Hooker. And this is not in prime Dan Hooker. This is a Dan Hooker that, was coming off a win to Claudio Puelles, a terrible guy on the field, a BJJ nerd. And then prior to that, he had lost to Arnold Allen. And then prior to that, I believe he beat Nashkov something, or maybe he lost to Islam Makhachev. Point is, Dan Hooker was not having a lot of success in the lightweight division. He moved down to the featherweight division, got destroyed by Arnold Allen. And then he tried to move up. He moved back up. They gave him a layup fight against Claudio, was able to beat that guy, but not in an impressive fashion, in my opinion, and was able to come back and beat Jalen Turner the way he did. It definitely took some of that that aura from Jalen Turner that people were hyping up. I know a lot of people thought he beat Mateusz Gamrot. I thought he lost, man. He got out grappled. And yeah, he was able to hurt Mateusz Gamrot in the first and second round, but I still think it wasn't enough. So I'm not too high on Jalen Turner, to be totally honest with you. I don't think the hype is there for this guy. But Bobby Green is old, and he does keep his hands very low, which I'm very worried. And we've seen that when Bobby Green doesn't have the reach advantage and he's not the longer guy, he tends to have problems. But this is short notice for Jalen Turner. So I think this fight is pretty close, and I think the odds are pretty fair. And ultimately, I think I am going to go with Jalen Turner by first round or second round. I'm going to go first round TKO. I think he's going to be able to find Bobby Green's chin. I hope Bobby Green wins. But I think if it goes out of the first round, I think Bobby Green has a very good chance of winning. I just don't like his defense. I don't like the fact that he's old. I know he's coming off that impressive Grant Dawson win where he caught Grant Dawson on the chin, but it was a quick KO. It wasn't really a fight. And, Grant Dawson was overhyped, but Grant Dawson is a grappler at the end of the day. He wasn't a guy known for incredible striking. He got caught by someone like Bobby Green. It happens. It happens, in my opinion. But I think I'm going to go with Jalen Turner by KO, TKO in the very first round. And there's that. Now let's move on to the main event, the fight that I really want to talk about. The reason why I have a suit on with a Hollister shirt, which doesn't make any sense. But anyway, Beneil Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan, man. I have a lot to say about this fight as well. Beneil Dariush, great lightweight fighter, great grappler, great BJJ. I think his striking is a bit overrated, which I'll get to. Arman Tsarukyan, a lot of people like to bring up that Arman Tsarukyan has no power, but I think this guy's getting a lot better. You also have to remember this guy's kind of small for the lightweight division, in my opinion. This guy could definitely be a featherweight. I mean, he's 5'7". He has a good reach. He has a good reach. I mean, they have about the same reach as they both have the same reach. He's 26, 27 years old. So I think Armin Tsarukyan is improving. I think this guy is hungry. I don't think Armin Tsarukyan has hit his prime yet, which is something to consider. And I know a lot of people are underestimating Armin Tsarukyan because of that win against Joaquim Silva, where a lot of people thought he should dominate Joaquim Silva, and he did dominate that fight. But in the second round, it got a little close, right? Because Joaquim Silva started to catch Armin Tsarukyan on the feet. I think, which is concerning, right? It's concerning because I think that sometimes Armin Tsarukyan makes the fights closer than they should. I personally thought he beat Mateusz Gamrot, definitely landed the more damaging strike. So in my opinion, Armin Tsarukyan should be undefeated besides the Islam fight, which I believe was his UFC debut. Besides that, Armin Tsarukyan should be undefeated, but like he hasn't really fought like the best competition. And honestly, the same thing could be said about Beneil Dariush. He hasn't really fought like the most amazing guys. I mean, Charles Oliveira would have been his best win. Prior to that, he beat Mateusz Gamrot, where Mateusz Gamrot has no hands, but Beneil Dariush has great grappling, was able to defend most of the takedowns and was really good and really effective with his scrambles and was able to win on the feet against Mateusz Gamrot. But even that moment where Beneil Dariush caught Mateusz Gamrot with a left overhand, it wasn't even like, oh, it was a fast striking exchange and then Beneil Dariush caught him. No, it was like literally Gamrot. Like go back and watch when Beneil Dariush drops Gamrot. Gamrot's literally like this man was literally waiting to get knocked out. Like, that's not going to happen with Armin Tsarukyan, man. Armin Tsarukyan is fast on the feet, throws amazing body kicks, throws amazing leg kicks. And even though he might not have that much power in his hands, he's definitely faster than Beneil Dariush, man. And I'm not going to pick Beneil Dariush, guys. I know a lot of these YouTubers and everybody's picking Beneil Dariush. I'm going with Armin Tsarukyan. I'm going with Armin Tsarukyan because I think he's faster on the feet. I think he has more tools on the feet. And Beneil Dariush is so slow twitch. That chin's been cracked a couple of times. Every time Beneil Dariush loses, it's by KO, TKO, and he gets finished brutally. And he's coming off that loss to Charles Oliveira, where even on the ground, he looks sloppy. He was on top. He was in full guard on top of Charles Oliveira, and Charles Oliveira was still landing the better strikes even from his back, which is absolutely crazy. And then on the feet, he looked like a fish out of water. Looks like he was fighting in slow motion. I just can't trust him here. Like, yeah, like even if he drops Armin Tsarukyan, I honestly believe Armin Tsarukyan survives. Unless he starts not being technical and starts scrapping with Beneil Dariush, and I could see Beneil Dariush knocking him out. But I think Armin Tsarukyan is definitely the more technical guy on the feet. I think maybe Beneil Dariush has way more experience than Armin Tsarukyan, but I just think his slow twitch, he's coming off a loss to Charles Oliveira, which was a very important fight for him. And that was the most important fight of his life. He was at the cusp of a title shot. And the fact that he fumbled that so bad, I'm sure that hurts, man. I'm sure that hurts. And I just think Armin Tsarukyan is going to come in hungry into this fight. I know a lot of people are picking Beneil Dariush because they're comparing it. Oh, well, look, Justin Gaethje beat Rafael Fiziev. Everybody picked Rafael Fiziev versus Justin. Yeah, but it's a little bit different in my opinion. It's a little bit different. Justin Gaethje has always been an incredible striker. And even though he lost against Charles Oliveira, he had a lot of success in that fight. He dropped Charles Oliveira like 2-3 times. Whereas in Beneil Dariush, what did he do to Charles Oliveira? Like, seriously, what did he do to Charles Oliveira? Absolutely nothing. And then against Mateusz Gamrot, he dropped Gamrot, but besides that, I mean, he won the fight, but it wasn't like, okay, if he finished Gamrot. And even prior to that, he fought Tony Ferguson, and he was scared to scrap with Tony Ferguson on the feet. He pretty much just took down Tony Ferguson and laid and prayed. So, do you guys really trust Beneil Dariush that much on the feet? Like, seriously. Like, I think, out of the two guys, I think Beneil Dariush clearly has the better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think Armin Tsarukyan is more of a top control, kind of lay and pray guy, kind of more of a position guy. I think Beneil Dariush is a little bit more dangerous with his BJJ. He might throw more submissions than someone like Armin Tsarukyan. And I think Armin Tsarukyan, what I will say is that I don't see him having a lot of success with the grappling here. I think Armin Tsarukyan needs to win with his leg kicks, head kicks, body kicks, slow down Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush is very slow twitch, and I do not trust him in the striking. Maybe he proves me wrong, but let's look at this guy's record. I mean, he won a decision against Benio Dariush. I mean, against Tony Ferguson, and then he won a decision against Mateus Gamrot. I want to know his full. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that fight with Diego Ferreira, very good fight, but it was still kind of a close fight. I mean, he won that fight due to his grappling. The Schultz Holtzman fight was also very good, but Schultz Holtzman is absolutely trash. Got a spinning back fist KO. But like I said, he's not doing these things to like impressive guys in my opinion. I mean, he got a submission over Drew Dober, good win. Thiago Moises, okay win, but like you see, like his resume isn't all that great either. You know, he's coming off that loss to Charles Oliveira, and something I will say, like he tends to lose to the smaller fighters. I think Armin Tsarukyan wins this fight, guys. I really do believe that. You know, come back and clown me if I'm wrong. You know, I have not been having a good track record, but that's for pay-per-views, okay? Based when it comes to UFC fight nights, I'm the man, you know? I'm the man. And I usually get those right. But like I said, I'm going with Armin Tsarukyan. I just think he's too fast on the feet. I think that he's going to be the guy coming in a little bit more hungry. He's the guy that's going to be improving a lot more. I know a lot of people are underestimating due to his past performance, but I really do think that Armin Tsarukyan is the future of the lightweight division. I think maybe he's 2, 3, 4 years from being in his prime, and he's this good. You know, he's probably gonna fight for the title in the next 2, 3 years, and I kind of want to see new blood, so I kind of am rooting for Armin Tsarukyan to win this fight, and I hope he kind of shuts everybody down, because everybody keeps talking about how this guy has no power, but like Beneil Dariush, like, does he throw amazing combinations? Yeah, he throws some good body kicks, but they're not as fast as Armin Tsarukyan's body kicks, so I just don't like. Yeah, he has more power than Armin Tsarukyan for sure, especially with his hands. But he's slow twitch. I'm serious, guys. Go back and rewatch his fights. He's so slow twitch. I don't know how. I could not understand. Back in June or May, I think it was May, June. I could not understand how people were picking Beneil Dariush with such confidence. And I'm not just saying this. Go back into my channel. I mean, it's not a great video because the audio quality was terrible. But go back to my Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush prediction. I predicted that Charles Oliveira would knock out Beneil Dariush. I predicted that. Not your Lucas Tracy, not your MMA guru. I predicted that because I listened to these guys and I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You know, Charles Oliveira is coming off a really bad loss to Islam Makhachev. He's been dropped quite a lot. Beneil Dariush does have a lot of power. He's also a southpaw. But then I went back and I did the eye test. I rewatched all of Charles Oliveira's fights and I watched all of Beneil Dariush's fight. And I was like, how the fuck are people picking Beneil Dariush? This guy's slow twitch as fuck on the feet. He's not, most of his fights go to a decision. Charles Oliveira is way more dangerous on the feet, better combinations. I think he has more power than Beneil Dariush. And I just think he's better in his striking. And Beneil Dariush, I don't think he's that great on the feet to really hurt Charles Oliveira. That was my prediction. And I got it absolutely right. And then, oh, you remember YouTubers? Oh, I guess Charles Oliveira's in wash. Bro, all you needed to do is go back and actually do some tape study. And you would realize that Charles Oliveira was easily going to beat Beneil Dariush. You know what I'm saying? And I hate it because those guys were actually getting me worried. That I was like, man, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe Beneil Dariush actually has a chance. But like I said, don't listen to these YouTubers. Don't listen to me. Go back. Go to ESPN Plus and actually watch these fights and make an opinion for yourself. Don't just go with what people are saying online. Actually do some tape study. And I'm going with Armin Tsarukyan on this fight. Like I said, I mean, maybe he has a chance to catch Armin Tsarukyan if Armin Tsarukyan starts to get a bit sloppy on the feet. But like even Armin Tsarukyan, he has more 5-round experience than someone like Beneil Dariush. Armin Tsarukyan has gone 5 rounds against Mateus Gamrot in a very, competitive fight where he had to deal with a lot of adversity, especially in those later rounds. Whereas Beneil Dariush hasn't really been through that. I mean, when was his last 5-round fight? I mean, the Mateus Gamrot 3-round fight, Tony Ferguson 3-round fight, Diego Ferreira 3-round fight, Schultz Holtzman 3-round. Like Beneil Dariush, I believe has never been in a 5-round fight. So I even think in the later rounds, Armin Tsarukyan has a chance. So Beneil Dariush, in my opinion, his only chance to victory is maybe dropping Armin Tsarukyan a couple times, maybe once, maybe dropping him like 3 times. and then one in each round, and maybe he could win a decision. But I really think he has to knock out Arman Tsarkukyan for him to win. I think Arman Tsarkukyan is going to land the better shots on the feet. He's going to land more shots on the feet, and he could clinch. I think he could have a little bit of success in the grappling, but I don't think he's going to have too much success on the grappling. And ultimately, I am picking Arman Tsarkukyan because I think he's better on the feet. I honestly think he's better on the feet. And like I said, I just don't trust Beneil Dariush's slow twitch ass striking. He looks absolutely unathletic. All respect to Beneil Dariush. I like the guy, but he hasn't impressed me too much in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? I think this guy was becoming very overrated going into the Charles Oliveira fight. So maybe I am picking him kind of like because I'm still angry about that. But I'm going with Arman Tsarkukyan, guys. And I am going to be watching it live. So I'm very excited to be at UFC Austin and actually watch this fight live. So if you guys are there, come by. If you guys see me, say hello. I'm going to be there. I'm very excited for this card, guys. It should be a fun one. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.